Guys, this is step one of the seller process, or step one in how to sell your home. So today we're going to talk about the initial strategy session and what that actually means for you, the homeowner. So step one is going to be, we're going to have a phone call to discuss when and where we can get together to meet. The ideal scenario is that we are in your home, at your kitchen table, in your living room, sitting on the sofa and having a conversation about your goals and what your interests are. So we need to make sure that your goals align with our intended outcomes and the path forward. So to do that, we're going to start with essentially just like you were writing a paper in essay class when you were a kid. Who, what, when, why, and how. So we're going to talk about the who, which is you, but we also need to talk about who are all the decision-making partners within this process. So is it just you that's going to be the decision maker, or is there another party involved? Is there a parent? Is there a child? Is there a sister? Is there a spouse? Who is going to be involved in the entire process? Because we all need to make sure that we're on the same page. So not only will you meet myself, but you'll meet the rest of my team that day as well. My transaction manager and operations manager will be on board there to help me throughout the process. So you need to meet them on day one. When we get to the house, we're going to talk about a few different things before we ever make the walkthrough so that I can see your beautiful home. And in those first few moments that we're together, I'm going to ask you some important questions. You'll know these way ahead of time when we make our first initial phone call. So let's talk about what are those questions so that you're prepared when we meet in person. First of all, you need to gather some data. What is your current mortgage payoff? What's your balance on your mortgage? Not necessarily when you look up online to see what's left. There's a difference between that and your actual payoff. So we need to know what that number is. That will help us determine your net proceeds, because the number one question we get asked on this initial conversation is, how much money am I going to walk away with in the end when you sell my house for X? No way for me to know that if I don't know what your exact payoff is. Then we're going to ask you a few other questions. Are there any additional liens on your house? Did you replace the HVAC 2 years ago and finance that? Guess what? That's a lien against your property. You used your home as collateral, whether you knew it or not. Do you have solar panels on the roof of your house? Again, if you do, that's a lien against your property, whether you know it or not. Do you have a line of credit? All of those things are tied back to your home being used as collateral. So we have to ask you all those questions in order to create for you a true picture of what you can walk away with. The next thing we're going to ask you is, what's your goal with this money? So when you pay off this house and we close and you get a check for X amount of dollars, what's your plan to move forward? And the reason we ask you that is there's some implications when you sell a home and you end up with a large net proceed. So we want to help guide you to make sure that you are able to talk to the correct people to give you the right advice to ensure that your tax liability is as low as it can possibly be. So whether that's you're free and clear and you don't have to worry about the tax implications, or maybe it's that you need to do a 1031 exchange in order to avoid paying those tax penalties. So we're going to ask you a lot of money questions up front about your personal situation. It's not invasive. It's so that we can take that data and then create a net proceeds sheet that matches what you'll really get on closing day. The goal here is that there are no surprises. So next, we're ready to walk through the house. So we're going to ask you to take us on a tour. And you'll notice that myself or one of my team members is going to be writing in a notebook the entire time. That is so that we can take diligent notes about everything that you tell us about the house. So when did you paint this wall? Oh, we made a plumbing repair here. We replaced this dishwasher. We're taking copious notes because we need all of that information to then go back and price your home accordingly. So make sure you're ready for that. We may ask questions like, do you have the receipt from the last time you had your HVAC service? Do you have a receipt for that water tank that you installed last year? Any records that you have, maintenance records, service records, or receipts from upgrades, make sure you keep those because we're probably going to want to see them so that we can make sure and price your home according to those upgrades that you've made. More money in your pocket for you on closing day. So finally, after we've walked through your house, we've gotten a pretty good sense of where your property fits within the marketplace. Next, it's time for the big question that all homeowners ask. How much is my house worth in today's market? We're not going to know that before we get there. So a lot of people want to call and say, well, how much is my house worth? I don't know until I come into your property. When I come in, we've looked around, we've done our due diligence to find out all of those upgrades that you've made. Then we're able to truly compare it against the other properties that have sold and or are for sale in your neighborhood. So at that point, we'll kind of lay out what we thought was going to happen before we got there, and then we'll be able to tell you where to price accordingly. Now, there's a couple of different ways to price your property, and we'll go over all of those scenarios at this particular meeting. So be ready for a pricing strategy conversation as well. Lastly, once we've talked about how to price your property, then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of, do you want to hire us? Do we want to work with you? Are we a good fit together? It's important that you want to work with us and we want to work with you. Again, our goal is to get you to your intended outcome, and we have to be a team in order to do that. So we'll lay out for you exactly what we're going to do in terms of strategy to get your home sold, and then we'll talk about what that's going to cost you on closing day. You need to know exactly what you can expect on that item sheet when you go to close. So you'll know exactly what you're planning to pay us for our services. Guys, that's step one. So remember, it's going to be the 5 W's. So we're going to ask you who, what, when, where, and how. Where are you going? What's your next step? What are you going to do with this money? Make sure that you have all of your records in place. We need to know all the things that have been serviced in your house, all the things that you owe that the house could be a contingency for, and then what are your next steps or what are your next plans? So stick around, everybody. Be ready for the next episode where we're going to talk about step 2 and what you can expect in the second step of the seller process.